And joining us now for more is Representative Andy Kim, Democrat from New Jersey. Representative Kim, thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell us what your initial reaction was when you first heard about these shootings in Atlanta?
Well, I was actually tucking my two baby boys into bed when I first started to get the alerts. I could feel my phone buzzing in my pocket as I'm kissing them goodnight. And when I pulled out my phone, I just saw these just very scared texts and from people all over the country asking if I knew what was going on. Their fears about what this is going to mean for the Asian American community around our country, people down in Atlanta who were texting me, trying to inform me about this and telling me about things on the ground. So it's been very raw over the last week. It's been incredibly hard, and I'll be honest, I still haven't quite processed everything that has happened and how I'm feeling about this.
I completely agree with you. And we mentioned the report from Stop AAPI Hate, but we've heard anecdotally over the course of this pandemic the increase in incidents and hate that have been unleashed against Asian Americans and Asians. And this is not something new. So, why do you think it was that it took such an extreme case of violence and death to really get people to focus on this issue?
Well, one thing I want to start with is just saying that the discrimination that the Asian American community faces existed before the coronavirus. It'll exist after the coronavirus. Certainly, the last year has poured gasoline on this fire, but this is a long-standing issue. This is a deep cut in our society. I saw the numbers that you posted. I believe those numbers are dramatically low compared to what actually is happening. I've talked to a number of people who have said that they haven't reported because of fear of retaliation, but they also, I heard from a woman just last week who told me that she didn't report what happened to her because she didn't think anyone would care. And I just, that one really broke my heart because you could tell how lonely she was, how isolated she feels when she didn't even think anyone would care to listen to her. So that is part of what we're struggling with right now. We don't know the scope of this problem. And hopefully, this event is going to be a movement for us to be able to bring this out into the open, make sure that we're all hearing about it, make sure that we're paying attention and thinking about next steps.
I think a big part of what's standing in the way of solutions too is the way that this has been used as a political tool. We know many of your colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle have been criticized for their rhetoric during this time and have been asked in some cases to tone down anti-Asian rhetoric or what can be seen as anti-Asian. Some of them have shaken it off. And a lot of these calls, by the way, coming from both sides of the aisle from Republican colleagues as well. What do you have to say about that? And what sort of barrier do you think it puts in place for, like we said, solutions to move forward?
When I see that kind of rhetoric coming from my colleagues or others, it again is it just adds to this pile of feeling like we're invisible, that people are that don't they either don't care or don't want to actually learn what is happening. They just want to change the subject, make it about them, make it about how we're trying to change their rhetoric or change their behavior. It's not about them. For like just look at us. Just pay attention to this moment right now and understand the hurt and the pain that the Asian American community faces. That's what this is about. Don't make it about you. Don't make it about how you're feeling and how you're going to have to use different words or how that inconveniences you. That is what I struggle with when I hear that kind of rhetoric and that kind of argument.
And we don't want to make this situation in Atlanta about the shooter, but it is worth noting that he claimed his motivation for the attack and the deaths of these people was a sex addiction. What do you think that says about the issue and the intersection between racism and sexism?
This is something where I listened to my wife and my sister and other Asian American women over this last week. That kind of excuse, that kind of rhetoric saying that this is a sexual addiction, again, that makes them feel, Asian American women feel invisible, makes them feel not heard and seen. This is a white man who clearly fetishized Asian women and objectified them with a hypersexuality that made him think that, oh, uh, I'm addicted to sex, so I can kill these people to remedy that, as if they're just something to be tossed aside, some sort of object to be or substance to be addicted to. Again, that just objectifies. It shows a certain sense of dominance over Asian women, and I think that that is something that I'm hearing. As an Asian man, I can't fully understand or have experienced the discrimination that many Asian American women have faced, but I certainly have heard their voices, and I think that we need to make sure we don't dismiss their experience, that there is undoubtedly a racist element to what has happened.
Congressman, despite what may happen with this impending case in Atlanta, what do you think the next steps are for us to move forward and to tackle anti Asian hate here in the country?
Well, one of the biggest things that I fear right now is that in a couple of days, if this starts to move off the headlines, that we're going to just go back to where things were, that we're going to forget about this or just not give it the attention. Trying to find some way to sustain this dialogue, sustain this push for solutions is important. I'm hoping that I'm working with the White House, with the Department of Justice, with congressional leaders and community leaders around this country to try to find ways to institutionalize this discussion and try to make sure that we build on it and we don't let it dissipate when the headlines start to go away. We need to make sure we have real investments into our communities, listen to them, figure out what support that they need to be able to address the concerns that they feel, which really comes down to this question: do you feel safe? And right now, people do not. And it's our job in the government and around the community to make sure that we change that.
Representative Andy Kim, Democrat of New Jersey, thank you so much for joining us here on Cheddar. Hope to have you back again soon.